Okay, so we should be recording now. Perfect. And I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay. Okay, perfect. So yeah, Rhiannon, Policy and Advocacy Director. We've already done that bit. Okay, so here's a brief overview, which hopefully all of the branch presidents got sent, of our upcoming work throughout the year. It's a useful resource to just look back to, in case you ever forget anything that we're working on, because it outlines all of the main work streams for policy and advocacy. So on the left, you can see the main campaigns, which I'm going to go through kind of one by one. And those are the UN International Days, Climate Change and Health, which is our coordinated theme, and conference campaigns. And then on the right, under things to look out for, you can see some kind of smaller campaigns that we'll be doing that will come up now and again, but not as regularly as the main campaigns. So that's COVID-19, COVID work, and then access to medicines usually related to COVID, which is why they're together. Race and health, because we have a race and health national working group who are hopefully going to be doing some campaigning work soon. Reactive advocacy and responding to current affairs. So over the course of the year, we'll be putting out statements and responding to help the kind of politics of health as it develops in the UK and globally. And the other thing to kind of keep an eye out for is the UK's role in global health, which we're working with lots of really cool externals to try and influence the way that the UK uses its power on the international stage to make that as positive as possible in global health. And at the bottom, you can also see some opportunities outlined. I'll talk a bit about the policy writing groups later today, but then there's also plenty of opportunities to, if you want to take a topic further, make a national working group. You can join my operational team, although I don't think you can right now because I think it's closed. But that's another really good way to get involved with the work. And over the course of the year, there'll be lots of opportunities for kind of capacity building to make people feel more confident in being able to do like political advocacy, campaigning, public engagement, lobbying, so not always publicly. So there'll be we'll kind of drip feed branches and members lots of stuff over the year, so that by the end of the year, you've got like a really good overview of what the skills you need to have. So I'm going to start with capacity building and policy. Because policy is kind of part of capacity building. So basically what I and the rest of the NC would really like is for all of the members, and especially the branch leads, to feel relatively confident if you want to work on an issue. So if you want to work on an issue, you can say, okay, well, if I'm going to make a strategy and I'm going to target these people, and this is how I target these decision makers, and this is how I would make this decision go one way or another. So having like a good sense of how decisions are made and how you can influence that decision making. So the first part of that kind of building that capacity will be an MP's toolkit released pretty soon, which will talk you through like what an MP does, what they vote on, how to get in contact with them, how to try and sway them to vote a particular way in Parliament, or to take up a particular issue in your local area, because there's lots of different things that they work on and lots of different ways in which you can communicate with them. And especially for like student youth groups, they're often quite responsive. So we'll be releasing a guide of like how you can use that for any kind of advocacy that you want to do, not just SFGH, and not confined to a particular topic. Secondly, we're hoping to kind of build up understanding of the politics of health over the year. Hopefully we'll be starting a politics of health newsletter, kind of capacity depending, but basically allowing people and helping people keep track of what the political and policy decisions are that influence health, and why we should care about them. So really understanding the ecosystem of decision making and how that's changing over the course of the year. The third thing is advocacy training, which Antonis has done a great job of working on developing, and that will be available to branches hopefully very soon. And then, building on this, engagement packs similar to the MP's toolkit, but basically teaching you how to effectively engage the public, for example, if you want to run a public-facing campaign. So this is all kind of capacity building stuff that we'll hopefully release throughout the course of the year to make members more confident in being able to do advocacy work. In the box, you can see a list of topics. So one of the best ways to develop your skills and understand what needs to be done on a particular topic is to write an SFGH policy. These are incredibly useful because it means that we have an agreed position as an organization. So when, say, like me or anyone else or anyone in a branch goes and meets with an external, say an MP, you can look at the policy beforehand and you know what SFGH's position is, and other people have already put down calls to action. So you don't have to spend loads of time thinking like, oh, like I care about this topic, but I don't know what to ask for. That's what the policy is for. So you like look through the policy and then you, like can know what your calls to action are. So these are some of the topics that we're particularly looking for policies on, and I'll be sending out a Google form probably in the next few days for people to register interest in like joining a group where I'll guide you through the process of writing a policy, and also writing one that's really effective and implementable, so it doesn't just sit on the shelf, but it gets used by branches, by the national committee, and by other people working in the area to advocate on that issue. And if there's any questions throughout, just pop them in the chat, otherwise we can have questions at the end. So the first campaign, which I wanted to talk about in a bit more depth, is the Climate Change and Health campaign. Obviously, well, hopefully everyone knows that it's our coordinated theme this year, and less people may know, but it's also COP26 basically a year from now. So COP26, it stands for Conference of Parties, and 26th is the 26th time it's running. And it's basically the big global UN climate change conference. It's where things like the Paris Agreement were decided. So that's being held in the UK in November 2021. But lots of the really important decisions that determine what will happen at that summit, so like most of the outcomes are determined before the summit, will happen over the next year, which is why we decided it was really important for us to have a really strong voice on this issue, on the relationship between climate change and health, as a UK health and youth advocacy group over the next year. So we've got like a whole campaign team working on this, and you can apply to join it, please do. And yeah, you should have got an email and seen the social media posts about applying to join that campaign team. And yeah, you can see with the little icons that we've broadly divided it into two phases. So the first part, we're looking to increase people's, like within the network and outside that network, understanding of the relationship between climate change and health, because it's really not discussed enough. And then by the time we get to kind of spring next year, we're wanting to really hone in on what our demands are, what we're asking of government, universities, local councils, MPs, to maximise what we can do on climate change and health. And yeah, on the website you can see like more of a breakdown of what we're going to be working on. But this will include things like, you know, making sure that the UK commits to really rapid and equitable decarbonisation. It will also include making sure that the UK like internationally promotes decarbonisation and things like a green recovery. And lots of what we'll be calling for is also based on our policy, which is another reason why policies are really important, that we passed at autumn weekend. So lots of really exciting things to look out for, and quite a lot of sub projects as well. So we'll have a research project, for example, trying to research what do young people actually want when it comes to climate change and health, like what are their demands. We'll have a project with the Planetary Health report cards, looking at like how universities can contribute to improving planetary health. And then we also have, we have then like a number of different kind of mini projects within that big work stream. So yeah, so hopefully that's clear. And what we'll be doing really soon is when we send out the recording of this video, we'll also send out the toolkit, which has just been finished, about how to do advocacy on climate change and health, so that no one's kind of stuck in the lurch being like, okay, I care about this issue, but I don't know enough about it, or I don't know where to start. You'll have like a whole guide to basically walk you through the process. Yeah, so that's climate change and health. The second major campaign that we'll be doing throughout the year is the UN International Days. And yeah, you can see them on the screen with the dates all laid out. And basically what we're doing on each of those days will be a different kind of action for each day. And that would depend on the topic, and also what we what it makes sense to do at the time. So if there's a particular issue that we want to be advocating for, or a particular, say, a bill going through Parliament which is related to one of the UN days, basically understanding what's going on at the time and knowing what we should be working on and advocating on. So you can see, for example, this is what we did for World Mental Health Day. So we had our own internal tea and talk discussing what SFGH can do. And then we were part of a global campaign calling for more investment in mental health. And then we also hosted an IFMSA, IFMSA ran, and we promoted a webinar about medical students' mental health. And then we also had a resource pack for branches and members. So it'd be varied depending on the day. And if you have any ideas that you want to do as a branch, or you think that we should do nationally, do just get in touch. But please join the work that we're doing, and also plan your own as well. That would be really great. A third major campaign we'll be doing is conference campaigns. And this is an example from Autumn Weekend, which was about displacement. So off the back of this conference, we thought it was really important to link what we were learning to doing something. And the Hands Up for Our Health campaign is about trying to make sure that everyone, including migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers, can access the NHS during the pandemic and beyond. So each of our conferences is going to be linked to an advocacy platform, so that we can kind of learn and then advocate on an issue. Other campaigns to look out for, like the ones I highlighted earlier, which will be coming up throughout the year, are reactive advocacy and current affairs. And if there is an issue that you think we should have an opinion on and should be responding to that's going on at the moment, do just drop me an email, pad at Students for Global Health, and we can see whether that's something that we should be responding to and advocating on. As I said, race and health, COVID-19, access to medicines, and you can see one example of access to medicines campaigning that we've been doing on the right here, which is recent at the World Trade Organization, India and South Africa proposed a mechanism to basically ensure that you can't have a monopoly on a COVID technology. The UK didn't support this, which was annoying, but you can see this action that we did trying to get them to support it, with lots of other people in the movement. And the UK's role in global health is a really interesting and important lobbying and advocacy piece, especially as the UK leaves the EU and goes in towards its Global Britain strategy. DFID and the Foreign Office have combined. Lots and lots of changes in the UK's foreign policy coming up. And it's really important that those changes don't take us backwards when it comes to global health, and continue to do good things and further improve. So it's really important that we work on this issue, and we'll hopefully be helping people to understand more about what UK foreign policy is on global health as well. And to learn about that, you can join our webinar on Thursday 29th, where we'll be interviewing a really, really important and cool guest. So that is basically it in terms of the presentation. I didn't want to make it too long, but I thought now would be a good time to ask questions. If anyone has any questions about how to get involved with something, or the content of a particular campaign, or anything like that. So that would be great. So does anybody have any questions? You can either just unmute yourself, or just type it in the chat. I don't really mind either way.
Do I need to, hi Rhiannon, do I need to be on a mailing list to get the email about registering my interest in policy writing? So I don't think I've signed up for any emailing lists or anything like that.
So the way that I usually send things out is I send things to the branch presidents, and then they should send it out to the branches. And I haven't sent that out yet, so don't worry, that's why you haven't got it. I haven't sent it yet. But if you and so we always send things out to all the branch presidents and ask them to send it out to their members, and then things also go out on the Students for Global Health Facebook page as well. So if you see anything on there that you're like, oh, I haven't got an email about that, just drop me or the branches coordinator a line, so that we know like if people are getting the emails or not. Yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, I haven't sent it out yet, so don't panic just yet.
And I'm also curious about how, like you said, that there is like support and like kind of teaching on how to write policies. Is that through like Zoom tutorials to kind of go through?
Yeah, exactly. So basically what I was going to do, this was my plan, and then it's a new thing, so we can change it if it's not working, was to get everyone to register their interest, and then hold like maybe 2 or 3 Zoom sessions where I talk the teams through. So all the teams who want to do different topics usually have like 2 or 3 people on a policy, so that you get different perspectives and you can cover the theme quite well. So they could all come, and then I could talk them through the process of how to write a policy, with like 1 or 2 meetings, because people often find it really difficult, and I think, well, not really difficult, people often find it confusing at the start to be like, how do I start this, how do I go about it, but it's actually quite easy, and I've got quite a methodological process to it, and that's easier to explain in person, or like not in person but over Zoom. So that was basically the plan, was to like start bringing people together and do some little sessions with them.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say as well, with writing a policy, I was lucky enough to write a few, I think last year, and had no experience in writing them at all, like none at all. And basically just, I think as long as you've got a bit of support and you can like refer to other policies that exist that are kind of like good templates, then they're pretty easy to crack on with. So I look forward to writing more this year, but like I said last year, I had absolutely no experience in it. It was a pretty cool like opportunity.
Yeah, it's not too hard, but hopefully that will help people like kind of just guide them through the process. And because we don't have to submit until like the next national weekend, we've got quite a lot of time as well, so there's no kind of rush and people can take their time with it as well. But yeah, really good questions, thank you. Okay, I can see the chat. Okay, all the main opportunities are available on the Facebook page. Yes, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
You mentioned the CT project in general. Do you mind going a bit more in depth on that and how it relates this year? Because I know it was present last year as well. But how is it different this year, and what makes it key to this year?
Yeah, so I think last year we were kind of testing the water with climate change and health, and like building our own internal capacity quite a bit to work on the issue. Whereas this year, because it's like such a pivotal year in climate change advocacy, and there's 2 reasons for that basically. The first reason is the one that we were kind of expecting, which is COP26, which is because it's 5 years since the Paris Agreement in December, which means that this is when countries are meant to have achieved lots of things that they said they would do at the Paris Agreement. So it's a really important accountability point to be like, actually, we're nowhere near where we need to be. So it's quite like a landmark thing to be 5 years since the Paris Agreement. So that's one thing that was always going to happen. But then obviously because of COVID, there's also whole new discussions around like a green recovery and green jobs and avoiding the next health crisis, which is like either going to be, another pandemic or climate change or both. So those are kind of 2 reasons why it's really important that we become like stronger on this issue as a network, because also we're quite lucky in that we can cross 2 spaces. We can cross the climate movement and the health movement. And they're often movements which don't talk to each other as much as they should. So not only can we work on this issue as an organization, but we can also influence the rest of the movement as well to kind of come together on this issue. So yeah, and in terms of how it's different to last year, it's basically more advocacy focused. So more like, this is what we want people to do now. So it's more kind of building up to making sure that, for example, like the UK has really strong nationally determined contributions, which is like how much you agree to lower your emissions by, has like really strong NDCs, and that like no recovery goes into like investing in fossil fuels or coal, and that we look to like make an equitable green transition. And crises are like basically a good opportunity to implement radical change if we want to. So yeah, so that's why it's like super pivotal this year, and it will be quite focused on, especially in 2021, achieving specific demands as well. I hope that answers your question. Does anybody else have any questions? You can either type them or just...
In regards to the National Working Group, how can you get involved, and like what is involved in the National Working Group?
Yeah, really good question. So the National Working Group is, I think we're looking for 9 people. And it's basically to work on exactly what I've just been talking about. So doing the campaigning, doing the research, doing the policy influencing on climate change and health for the next year. And then hopefully, like, if the National Working Group wants to continue, it doesn't have to be the same people, but we'd like it to stay like a strong core part of the network. In terms of what it involves, there's a couple of different strands, and that's outlined in the application process. So one of the strands is research. So we're looking for people to help us work on a research project that will investigate youth demands on climate change and health, because it's a topic that isn't talked about enough. There's not necessarily a set of like coordinated demands around climate change and health. I think we're getting closer to that with our policy and by working with others. But we thought it'd be really good and really influential to have research from youth, and it's particularly our network, but also other networks, that says like actually what do people want for climate change and health. And then other streams are the campaigns group. So that group will basically be supporting the National Committee and the rest of the climate change and health team to do some really impactful campaigning throughout the year. So for example, before Christmas, I'm hoping that we can do like a feature on climate justice and health justice and how they interact. So basically talking about, you know, like how oppression and power dynamics are reflected in people's health, and they're also reflected in who's going to suffer as a result of climate change and the impacts on health. So that would be one example. That's more around awareness raising, but that would be like a really interesting issue to build capacity and interest in the UK and within medical and health and general students. And then next year we're hoping to run a campaign with other partners, it's still in development, called Health for a Green New Deal, which will then focus on like really specific points towards the UK government. And that will be things like, you know, getting branches and members to write to their MPs, going to meetings with the government, and really pushing for this through multiple different channels. So yeah, it should be a really interesting piece of work and lots of different streams to that work as well. Cool. Does anybody else have any questions at all? Yeah, I feel like we've covered quite good ground. Okay, cool. If there's no other questions, I think that's probably it. I will get this recording hopefully on YouTube and sent out to branches as well, so that they can watch it. And oh wait, there's a message in the chat. Oh yeah. So it would be, yeah, if you have any questions at all, email me at pad, so PAD, at studentsforglobalhealth.org. Or if you have specific questions about climate change and health, you can email coordinated theme at coordinated theme lead at studentsforglobalhealth.org. And it's all on the website in case you forget those emails, so don't worry. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for coming, and look forward to working with you on lots of policy and advocacy over the course of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.